Hey, what's up everybody? It's your boy Strange here, pulling you into this dimly lit corner of the internet like I always do on Dirty Hollywood. Because tonight we are not just talking gossip, we are cracking open the vault on one of the most unfiltered, self-sabotaging moments in recent celebrity history, and trust me when I say, this one hits different. Picture February 8, 2026. The feeds are already on fire with whatever fresh political chaos or award season drama is swirling around Hollywood that week. And then, without warning, a TikTok drops. Simple setup, no flashy edits, just Doja Cat herself, Amala Dlamini, staring dead into the lens from what looks like her home studio in Los Angeles. The lighting is low, that signature half smirk on her face, voice calm but cutting like a knife through the bullshit. She leans in and says it plain. Public service announcement. If you're a celebrity, shut the fuck up. Nobody wants to hear your fucking shit. Be mysterious. Stop letting people in on your life. Have more mystique. The more they see of you, the less they'll want. Pause for a second. Let that sink in. Millions of views in hours. Shares exploding. Then poof! The video vanishes. Deleted faster than a bad tweet from a PR team in panic mode, but the internet, it never forgets. Clips are everywhere. Reactions pouring in like a flood. Some folks are nodding along, saying finally someone's calling out the endless oversharing, the virtue signaling, the crying on camera about first world problems, while the rest of us are just trying to pay rent. Others, they're losing their minds, calling her the biggest hypocrite alive, because this is the same Doja who's been live tweeting her every mood swing and fan interaction for years. And here's where shit gets truly fucked up, my friends. This wasn't some off-the-cuff moment. This was a woman who's clawed her way through the Hollywood machine, seen the strings, felt the knives in the back, and finally snapped in a way that exposed every crack in the facade. But to really get why this rant hit like a grenade in a powder keg, we gotta rewind all the way to the start. Because the story of Doja Cat isn't just about a viral meltdown. It's about a kid from a fractured family who got sucked into the fame vortex, learned the rules the hard way, broke them anyway, and then decided the whole game was rigged. Let's go back. 1995, Tarzana, California. Not the glitzy side of Los Angeles you see in the movies. Amala Ratna Zandile Dlamini is born on October 21 to a mom named Deborah Sawyer, this talented Jewish-American graphic designer and painter who's hustling to make art pay the bills. Dad? Dumisani Dlamini, a South African Zulu actor and performer who starred as Crocodile in the original Broadway run of Sarafina and the movie version 2. They meet in New York during one of his shows, sparks fly for a hot minute and boom! Amala arrives. But here's the first betrayal in a long line of them. Dumisani heads back to South Africa soon after, chasing homesickness or whatever excuse you want to call it. He leaves little Amala and her older brother Raman behind with their mom and grandma. Doja's talked about it in old interviews. That raw honesty she used to drop before the fame machine polished some of it away. She said straight up she never met her father growing up. Called him a deadbeat dad more than once. People who were around the family back then swear the house felt the absence hard. Mom working late on designs, grandma stepping in, that quiet kind of broke, where the fridge is full of creativity, but the bank account is screaming. Rumors have always floated though. Insiders who claim they know the real story say Dumisani tried reaching out over the years, that he had a version where the relationship was healthy until her management team allegedly blocked him cold. They didn't want some South African actor complicating the narrative. Or, let's be real, potentially taking a cut of the future millions. According to people who were in the room back then, one former associate whispered to me off the record, the label saw dollar signs in Amala early and didn't need some estranged dad showing up with paperwork. Come on, we all know how that plays out in this town. Family becomes a liability when the checks start rolling in. The family bounces around early. Right after birth, they spend a few years in New York, then back to California, Oak Park first. Mom enrolls young Amala in ballet, tap, jazz lessons from the time she is 5, trying to channel all that energy into something structured. Her aunt, a singer herself, gives her vocal coaching to get her foot in the door at performing arts schools. By 11, they're in the Sherman Oaks area, but not your cookie-cutter suburban setup. They end up living in an ashram tucked up in the mountains of Agoura hills. 4 straight years of Hinduism, meditation, chanting at dawn, the smell of incense thick in the air, no mainstream TV blasting celebrity nonsense. Imagine that for a second. A preteen girl surrounded by spiritual vibes, learning about inner peace while the outside world is all about flesh and fame. People close to her from that time say it shaped her in weird ways. Made her question everything conventional, gave her that edge that later turned into full-on rebellion. But it also left her feeling isolated, like she was always on the outside looking in at normal kid stuff. Fast forward to her teens. She's in high school at a performing arts place in Los Angeles, the kind where everyone's dreaming of the big break. But Amala, she's already over it by 16, drops out, starts pouring everything into music she makes on her laptop, scouring YouTube and SoundCloud for beats. She uploads her first tracks under the name Doja Cat, a nod to her love for cats and weed culture mixed together. One song in particular, So High, catches real attention. It's this dreamy R&B rap hybrid that feels fresh and unpolished. Suddenly, producers are sliding into her DMs. At 17, she signs with Kemosabe Records, this imprint under RCA run by none other than Dr. Luke. Yeah, the same guy who's been tangled in his own scandals over the years. Word on the street from early studio sessions is that the deal felt like a golden ticket at first. They dropped her debut EP, Purr, in 2014. It's raw, experimental, full of that psychedelic edge she grew up with from the ashram days. But the real explosion, 2018, the song Mooo. You remember it, right? This absurd, hilarious track where she raps about being a cow, complete with a music video of her in a cow onesie twerking in a field. It goes mega viral, millions of views overnight. Suddenly, Doja Cat isn't just some underground SoundCloud kid. She's a meme queen, the internet's chaotic darling. Labels are throwing money at her, interviews start rolling in. In one old chat, she laughs about how broke she was before, how she'd eat ramen for days while perfecting flows in her bedroom. I was literally just a girl making shit on my computer, she said once. But here is the first crack in the armor. The fame hits fast. Too fast. Insiders who worked on that early campaign swear the pressure to clean up her image started immediately. Old tweets resurface from her teen years. Homophobic slurs, racist vibes in some Discord chats she was part of. She addresses it, apologizes in that half-defiant way of hers, but the damage lingers. People who were there swear the label wanted to bury it all, one former publicist told me under the table. They saw the cash cow and didn't want the mess. And yet she keeps rising. 2020, Say So blows up even bigger. The Planet Her album era cements her as a global star. Grammys start calling, collaborations with the biggest names, but even then the rebellion is simmering. She's posting weird shit online. Feuding with fans who get too close at meet and greets. One story from around that time has her throwing a fan's t-shirt away after a hug she didn't want. Bottom line, I will smile at you, but that doesn't mean I fuck with you, she tweeted once. Don't touch me, don't manhandle me. The kittens, her fanbase, start feeling the whiplash. She calls them out in thread posts that get deleted faster than you can screenshot. You don't care about your fans, one viral clip of her saying it echoes. And through it all, the Hollywood machine is watching. Managers whispering, other celebs side-eyeing, because Doja isn't playing the game the way they want. She's not mysterious, she's all over the place. Oversharing, snapping back. And that, my friends, is exactly what set the stage for the 2026 bomb she dropped. But we're not stopping there, because to understand the real trigger, we gotta dig into how the industry chewed her up and spit her out in ways that left scars. The label deals that locked her in. The friends who turned into leeches. The way fame turned her private pain into public spectacle. Stick with me, because what happened next in her story is where the knives really come out. And where this rant stops being just words. And starts looking like the only honest thing anyone said in years. The pressure cooker of Planet Her success wasn't all glitter and Grammys. Behind the scenes, according to multiple insiders who've spoken to me off the record over the years, Doja was already feeling the walls close in. Those early contracts with Dr. Luke's crew, they came with strings attached that pulled tighter every time she blew up bigger. One former collaborator described the studio sessions during the Hot Pink to Planet Her transition like this. She'd come in with these wild ideas, psychedelic flows mixed with rap bars that felt like they came straight from that ashram childhood. But the suits wanted radio-friendly. They wanted the meme girl to stay the meme girl, but polished. No more unfiltered tweets, no more calling out the bullshit. She pushed back though, always did. In a 2021 interview, she talked about how the industry tries to own every piece of you. They want the art, but they don't want the artist if the artist has opinions, she said. Sarcastic laugh, eyes rolling. You could hear the resentment building even then. And the family stuff never went away. Dad Dumisani pops up in the media every now and then, claiming he tried to be there, that management blocked calls and visits because they were scared he'd derail the brand. Doja shuts it down every time. I never met him, she repeats in older clips. But people close to the circle swear there were leaked emails floating around the family. Texts where he reached out asking for a relationship only to get stonewalled. The money was flowing by then, one relative whispered, in a conversation that never made the tabloids. Why risk it with a dad who might want a piece? It fed into her whole distrust of everyone, even her own blood, adding the constant online scrutiny. By 2022, she's feuding publicly with Noah Schnapp from Stranger Things. She slides into his DMs asking about hooking up with his co-star Joseph Quinn. Thirsty messages, fun, chaotic Doja being Doja. But Noah posts the screenshots. She calls him a snake, a socially unaware kid, loses hundreds of thousands of followers overnight. Borderline snake, she fires back. The internet eats it up. Fans defend her, others say she's the one who crossed the line. Then the fan wars escalate. 2023, she's on threads going off on her own kittens, calling out accounts that stand too hard. You don't care about your fans, she types in posts that get deleted but screenshotted forever. One viral moment has her telling a fan at a show, "Don't touch me." The shot incident blows up. She laughs it off in a later life, but the damage? Her image as a relatable anti-celebrity starts cracking. Word on the street from people still scared to talk, a former tour insider told me, is that the label was panicking. They had PR teams working overtime to spin it as authentic Doja, but inside they knew she was a loose cannon, the kind that could tank a whole rollout with one tweet. And through it all, she's dropping hints in songs and interviews that the fame game is exhausting. In one 2024 chat, she talks about wanting to disappear sometimes. Be mysterious, she jokes, not knowing she is foreshadowing her own future rant. By late 2025, the cracks are showing everywhere. Album cycles dragging, social media quiet spells broken by random outbursts. Rumors swirl about label tensions, about her wanting out of certain deals. Insiders say she was watching other celebs do the exact thing she hated. Posting their political takes, crying about personal dramas for likes and streams. One specific trigger people in the know point to: a string of A-listers weighing in on hot-button issues around protests and elections that year. She was tired of the noise, a close friend from her early days said off the record. Tired of everyone thinking their platform meant their opinion was gospel. And then comes February 2026. The video, the rant, the deletion. But the real explosion, that's what happened the second it hit the airwaves. Because this time the knives came from all directions. Fans who felt personally attacked. Celebs who saw it as a direct shot. Industry players who realized their cash cow was turning on the herd. And me? I'm just getting started, peeling back the layers on who really got stabbed, who cashed in on the chaos, and how this one moment might have changed everything for Doja Cat forever. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Within hours of that TikTok dropping and disappearing, the clips were everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, every corner of the internet, lighting up with takes. Some were cheering her on. Finally, someone said it. One viral post read, "Celebs need to shut up about politics and just entertain." But the majority? They smelled hypocrisy a mile away. Isn't this the same woman who can't stop posting her every thought? Another account fired back. And they weren't wrong. Doja had spent years building a brand on being unfiltered, chaotic, in your face. Now here she was telling everyone else to zip it and vanish into mystery. The comment sections turned into battlegrounds. One clip from a now deleted video shows her eating while delivering the lines, casual as hell, and people latched onto that too. Even her delivery is messy, they said. Typical. But it wasn't just random fans piling on. Word started spreading through industry circles that certain big names were pissed. People who were in the room at parties and label meetings swear the Rant landed like a personal attack on the way Hollywood does business now. Everyone sharing their journey for clout. Every actor crying on a red carpet about mental health while banking millions. Insiders who are still scared to talk openly told me the vibe was icy, one source close to a major management firm said. They saw it as Doja calling out the machine that made her, the same machine that profits off oversharing. And let's not forget the political angle. A lot of the coverage framed it as her telling celebs to stop pushing agendas, especially around the hot button issues of 2026. Protests, riots, all that. Some big names had been vocal that year, others stayed silent. Her words felt like shade thrown directly at them. Then the fanbase fractured harder than ever. The kittens who stuck by her through the old tweet scandals, the DM leaks, the anti-fan moments, some turned. You told us you hated us for years and now you're mad at celebs for talking too much, one ex-fan posted. Streams dipped a little, merch sales slowed, brands that had been circling for endorsements suddenly got quiet. One leaked email chain from a potential partner, according to people who saw it, straight up said, her brand feels too unpredictable right now. That's the Hollywood way. One rant and the money machine starts recalculating. But the real betrayal came from inside her own circle. Rumors flew about her team scrambling, managers calling emergency meetings, publicists trying to spin it as artistic expression or a call for authenticity. One former associate who worked with her during the Planet Her rollout told me off the record she was done playing nice. The label had been pushing her to be more relatable for years, more open about everything, and she finally said, fuck that. And here's where the story gets darker, because this rant didn't happen in a vacuum. It was the boiling point of years of feeling used, the dead drama still lingering, the label deals that locked her creativity down, the friends who leaked private moments for their own gain. No, Schnapp wasn't the only one. There were whispers of other DMs and texts with bigger names that never surfaced but left scars. People in the room swear she was exhausted from the constant performance, another insider said. The ashram kid who wanted mystery was trapped in the oversharing machine. So when she dropped that video, it wasn't just advice. It was a middle finger to the entire system that created her and then tried to own her. The days after the deletion were chaos. Media outlets ran think pieces. Is Doja Cat right about celebrity culture? One headline asked. Podcasts dissected it frame by frame. Some celebs subtly clapped back without naming names. Others stayed silent, but the side eyes were loud. One A-lister at a private event reportedly joked, "Guess some people forgot how they got here. Petty, but that's Hollywood." And Doja? She went quiet again. No follow-up posts, no explanations. Just that one deleted clip hanging in the air like smoke from a fire that refused to die. But the fallout was just beginning. Because when you call out the machine calls back, harder. This is where the real players start emerging. The managers who saw their control slipping, the fellow artists who felt exposed, the fans who turned into former fans overnight, and the deeper secrets of how the industry profits of these exact meltdowns. Sponsors pulling back, streaming numbers shifting, the quiet way power gets redistributed when one star steps out of line. I'm Strange, and I'm not stopping until we uncover every layer of who really won and who got destroyed when Doja Cat decided enough was enough. The silence from Doja after the rant spoke volumes. No apology tour, no vague Instagram story about growth, just radio silence while the world dissected her words like a crime scene. And in Hollywood, silence is never neutral, it's a strategy or a surrender. Insiders say her team was in full damage control mode behind closed doors, emergency Zooms with label execs, PR firms billing overtime trying to frame it as a moment of clarity instead of a career grenade. One leaked text from a high-level manager, according to people who saw the chain, read something like, "We need to pivot her narrative back to music before this becomes her whole identity. Because that's the game. One honest trend and suddenly the focus shifts from the art to the drama, and the money follows the drama." But the knives weren't just coming from the suits. Fellow celebrities started feeling the heat too. Some big names who had been vocal on social issues that year reportedly took it personally. Whispers from party circuits and studio lots painted a picture of side conversations where her name came up with eye rolls. She's one to talk, one unnamed star supposedly said at a private dinner. Built her whole career on oversharing and now wants mystery. Petty? Absolutely. But in this town, pettiness pays the bills. And then there were the fans who felt personally betrayed. The kittens who had defended her through every controversy, from the old tweets to the fan touch incidents. They were the ones flooding comment sections with hypocrite and unfollowing in droves. One viral thread broke down her entire history of calling out her own supporters. She said she doesn't fuck with us for years, it read. Now she's mad at other celebs for doing the same thing she does. The numbers don't lie. Follower counts dipped. Engagement on her posts tanked for a stretch. And the streaming, it took a noticeable hit on older tracks, while new music buzz cooled off. Here's the fucked up part though. Some people in the industry saw opportunity in the chaos. Rumors started circulating about rival camps quietly happy about the distraction. Other artist teams using the moment to push their own clients into the spotlight. According to insiders who were in those meetings, one source told me, there were execs at competing labels joking that Doja just handed them free promo by calling out the oversharing game everyone plays. Because that's Hollywood. Your meltdown becomes someone else's marketing budget. The same machine she was criticizing turned her words into content. Podcasts, YouTube breakdowns, merch even popped up with her quote on it, ironic as hell. The more they see of you, the less they want? Well, they couldn't stop seeing her now. And through it all, the ghost of her past kept haunting the narrative. The dead drama resurfaced in tabloids again. Dumisani giving interviews claiming he tried to be there. Doja staying silent. The ashram childhood got dragged into think pieces as proof she was always destined to reject the fame game. Old clips of her feuds with Noah Schnapp and the fun t-shirt incident got remixed into new videos titled Doja Cat's long history of telling everyone to back off. It was like the industry was building a case file on her, documenting every time she pushed back, every time she refused to play nice. And the deeper you dig, the clearer it becomes that this rant wasn't random, it was years of resentment boiling over. The label pressure to stay on brand. The friends who leaked DMs for clout. The constant demand to share more, post more, give more, until there's nothing left that's yours. One former studio engineer who worked with her during the Scarlet album cycle described the vibe like this. She'd be in the booth, laying down these fire bars, but between takes, she'd talk about how exhausting it all was. The expectation to be everyone's chaotic best friend online. She wanted the music to speak, not the drama. But the drama always won. Until that February day when she decided to flip the script. And the fallout? It exposed the raw underbelly of how this town operates, the way it builds you up on oversharing and then punishes you when you call it out, the way fans and peers turn on you the second you stop feeding the machine, the way millions get made of your destruction while you watch from the sidelines. We're deep in it now, and the story is only getting darker, because what happened next involved bigger players stepping into the ring. Label heads recalculating contracts, other stars using the moment to distance themselves or align quietly. And Doja herself? She was about to face the real test of whether you can tell the machine to shut the fuck up and still survive inside it. The weeks after the rant turned into a slow-motion car crash that everyone slowed down to watch. Streaming platforms saw a weird spike in her catalog at first. Curiosity clicks from people who wanted to see what all the fuss was about. But then the algorithm shifted. Playlists that used to push her new singles started featuring other artists instead. Brands that had been in talks for campaigns suddenly went dark. One potential deal for a major beauty line, according to people familiar with the negotiations, got paused indefinitely after the video. They loved the edgy image until the edge got too close to their own marketing, a source in the advertising world said. Suddenly, she was the face of "shut up" instead of "buy this." That's the Hollywood economy for you. Your words become liabilities faster than they become hits. And the celebrity responses? They were coded, but vicious. A few big names posted vague stories about the importance of using your platform for good. Others liked tweets that shaded oversharing in the opposite way. One A-lister who had been vocal on social issues that year reportedly told a mutual friend at a private event, "Some people forget where their money comes from." No names, no direct shots, but the subtext was loud. Meanwhile, Doja's own circle started showing cracks. Rumors of management tensions leaked through the usual anonymous accounts. One text chain that supposedly circulated among her team had a manager writing, "This is career suicide if we don't course correct." Another insider who worked security on her last tour swore that even her inner circle was divided. Some wanted her to double down, lean into the anti-celebrity rebel role. Others were terrified the money train was derailing. She built this empire on being unapologetic, the source said. Now the industry was testing if unapologetic still paid the bills. The fan fallout cut deepest though. The kittens who had ridden with her through every storm started peeling off in waves. Threads and Twitter spaces filled with ex-fans, recounting every time she had told them they were too much. The t-shirt incident got remixed into memes. Old clips of her saying "I don't fuck with you" got stitched with the new Rant. She spent years pushing us away and now she's mad at celebs for letting people in? One viral post read. The numbers told the story. Engagement rates dropped. Some fan accounts that used to post daily edits went silent. Merch resale values tanked on secondary markets. It was like the entire supporter base was holding up a mirror to her words and saying, "You first." And the disgusting part, the industry loved it. Drama channels racked up millions of views breaking down the Doja Cat self-destruction arc. Podcasts booked guests who had never met her just to speculate. The same machine she called out was now profiting off the very oversharing she hated. But the real dirt, the stuff that never made the headlines, was how this moment connected to deeper Hollywood patterns. The way stars get built up on authenticity until authenticity becomes inconvenient. The way labels encourage personal branding until that brand turns against the brand. Insiders from multiple camps told me the quiet truth. This town runs on controlled chaos, one veteran manager said. Doja just made her chaos uncontrolled. And when that happens, the response is swift. Contracts get reviewed, future projects get delayed, whispers start about difficult artist labels that follow you for years. One rumored conversation with a major streaming exec supposedly went like this. She's talented, but is she worth the headache now? That's the calculation. Talent versus trouble. And in 2026, the scales were tipping. We're not done though. Because the story of this rant is bigger than one deleted video. It's about the entire ecosystem that creates these explosions and then feeds off the rubble. The fathers who get erased for the brand. The childhoods that get romanticized until they become liabilities. The friends who leak DMs and the fans who turn into enemies. The way millions get made of someone else's destruction while the star watches it all burn. And Doja? She was standing in the middle of the flames, finally saying the quiet part out loud. But the real question, the one everyone's waiting to see answered, is whether you can survive telling the machine to shut the fuck up when the machine is the only thing that ever fed you. The silence from Doja stretched on for weeks, but the industry noise around her grew louder. Behind-the-scenes deals that had been in motion suddenly stalled. One potential collaboration with a major pop act, according to people in the know, got quietly shelved after the rant because the other artists' team didn't want the association with controversy. They loved the streams, but not the headlines, a source close to the negotiations said. That's how fast it moves. One honest moment and the phone stops ringing the same way. Meanwhile, her back catalog started seeing strange patterns. Older tracks like Say So and Kiss Me More got boosted in some playlists as nostalgia plays, but new music buzz flatlined. Fans who stuck around created their own narratives. Some called her a visionary for calling out the oversharing culture. Others labeled her ungrateful, pointing to the fact that her entire rise was built on the very internet attention she was now criticizing. The dead drama resurfaced again too, like clockwork. Domisani gave another interview somewhere overseas claiming he had tried repeatedly to connect and that management had blocked him at every turn. Doja stayed silent, but the tabloids ate it up. Headlines like Doja Cat's estranged father speaks out amid her celebrity rant started trending. It was the perfect cycle. Personal pain repackaged as content. The same cycle she had just called bullshit on. Insiders who watched the family dynamic over the years swore the timing wasn't coincidence. Every time she steps out of line, the old stories get dusted off, one relative-level source said. It's like the industry has a file ready to deploy whenever they need to humanize or demonize her. And the ashram childhood, that got weaponized too. Think pieces about how her spiritual upbringing made her reject the material world of fame. She spent 4 years in meditation and now she wants everyone to be mysterious, one article joked. The subtext was clear. She was too weird for this town, too unpredictable, too much of a liability. Then the real betrayals started showing. People she had trusted in her inner circle began leaking small details to the press. Studio stories about her mood swings during recording sessions. Old texts where she vented about the industry. One supposed DM chain from a former friend made the rounds on gossip accounts. She's always been like this, it read. Bites the hand that feeds her. Whether real or manufactured, the effect was the same. The narrative shifted from brave truth teller to difficult diva. And the money? It followed the narrative. Merch deals paused, tour promoters got cautious. Even her own label started talking about repositioning in meetings that leaked through the grapevine. The machine doesn't like being called out, one ex-executive told me. Especially when the one calling it out is one of its biggest products. This is the part where the story stops being about one video and starts being about the entire system that chews up artists and spits them out when they stop playing along. The way childhood traumas get turned into brand stories until they become weapons. The way friendships in this town are really just alliances of convenience. The way fans who once worshipped you become the first to turn when you tell them the truth. And Doja Cat was learning all of it in real time, in public, while the world watched and profited. The question wasn't whether she was right. The question was whether the industry would let her survive being right. And that's exactly what we're about to unpack next, because the fallout didn't stop at lost followers and paused deals. It went deeper. Into the boardrooms where careers get decided. Into the group chats where real power moves happen. Into the quiet ways Hollywood punishes the ones who refuse to stay mysterious on their terms. Stick with me, because the knives are just getting sharpened and the real story of who got destroyed and who cashed in is about to get ugly. The boardroom conversations that followed the Rant were the kind that never make the tabloids, but shape entire careers. Label executives, according to multiple sources who were in or near those meetings, started reviewing her contract points with fresh eyes. The language around brand alignment got highlighted, one insider said. They wanted to make sure they had an out if she went full rebel mode again. That's the dirty secret of these deals. They look like golden tickets on paper, but they're full of clauses that kick in the second you stop being profitable. And Doja's profitability was suddenly in question, not because her music sucked, because the drama around her was starting to overshadow the music. Streaming numbers for new singles, when they eventually dropped, came in lower than expected. Radio play dipped in some markets. The algorithm, that invisible hand of the industry, started favoring safer artists who kept their opinions locked down. Meanwhile, the celebrity world was doing what it does best, smiling in public while sharpening knives in private. A few big names who had been on the receiving end of similar criticism in the past reportedly used the moment to bond with their teams. See, this is why we stay mysterious. One A-lister supposedly joked in a group chat that got screenshotted by someone who shouldn't have seen it. Other artists who had collaborated with her in the past started distancing themselves subtly. Old joint tracks got buried in playlists. Joint appearances got scrapped from promotional material. It was the Hollywood version of unfollowing without clicking the button. And the fans? They were the most vicious of all. The same kittens who had defended her through the Noah Schnapp drama and the old tweet scandals now felt personally attacked by her call for mystery. She built her entire fanbase on letting us in, one ex-stan wrote in a viral thread. Now she wants us to stay out. Make it make sense. The unfollow wave was real. The comment sections on her posts turned into battlegrounds. And the merch resale market, it tanked harder than anyone expected. But the real money move, the one that showed how disgusting this town can get, was how the drama itself became the product. Drama channels racked up views breaking down every second of the deleted video. Podcast hosts booked entire episodes with guests who had never met her just to speculate on her mental state. Even some of her old collaborators started dropping tell-all style hints in interviews. She was always a free spirit, one producer said with a knowing smile. Translation, she was always trouble. And the cash flowed to everyone except the woman at the center of it. That's the true crime of Hollywood. They create the chaos, they film the chaos, they monetize the chaos, and then they act shocked when the star finally calls it out. Doja herself stayed mostly quiet through it all. A few cryptic posts here and there, no full explanations. No apology videos, just that one deleted TikTok hanging in the digital ether like a ghost. But those of us who have been watching this town for years knew what it meant. She was testing the waters, seeing if she could exist in the machine without feeding it every piece of herself. The ashram kid, who grew up with meditation and mystery, was trying to reclaim that part of her soul. The question was whether the machine would let her. And the answer, as we're about to see, involved betrayals that went way deeper than anyone expected. The real betrayal started bubbling up in the months that followed. People she had trusted for years began positioning themselves as the voice of reason in private conversations. One former manager, according to sources close to the situation, started shopping stories to media outlets about how difficult the process had become. Another insider from her early SoundCloud days leaked old studio footage that painted her in a less than flattering light. She was always like this, the narrative went. Talented but chaotic. It was the classic Hollywood playbook. When a star steps out of line, the people who once profited from her chaos suddenly act like they were always the victims of it. And that stuff, it got weaponized again in the most disgusting way. Dumisani gave yet another interview claiming he had tried to be a father and that her team had blocked him to protect the brand. The timing couldn't have been worse or more convenient for anyone looking to paint her as ungrateful and isolated. Even her own creative process came under scrutiny. Studio engineers who had worked on previous albums started talking off the record about mood swings. She wanted control, one said, but control doesn't always equal commerce. The label, sensing the shift, began quietly developing backup plans. New artists who fit the safe but edgy profile got pushed harder in meetings. Doja's next rollout got delayed under the guise of perfectionism. And the fans who remained, they splintered into camps. The ride or die kittens defended her as a truth teller. The disillusioned ones created threads compiling every time she had pushed them away. The middle ground just watched the spectacle and waited for the next chapter. This is the part where the story stops being about Doja Cat the artist and starts being about Doja Cat the cautionary tale. The industry loves a cautionary tale. It keeps the other stars in line. It reminds everyone that the machine gives and the machine takes away. And in her case, the taking away was happening in slow motion. Deals dried up, collaborations cooled. The mystery she had called for became the very thing that isolated her. But the real question everyone was asking behind closed doors was simple. Could she survive it? Or had telling the truth finally cost her everything the Hollywood machine had promised? The isolation started to show in small ways. Fewer public appearances, studio sessions that stretched longer with less output, social media posts that felt more guarded than ever. The woman who had built her brand on chaos was now trying to practice the mystery she preached, and the industry was watching every move like hawks. One leaked text from a label meeting supposedly read, "We need to decide if we are investing in the music or the myth." Because that's what it always comes down to in this town. The product versus the person. And when the person starts questioning the product, the calculations change fast. Rumors began swirling about internal power shifts in her camp. Managers who had been with her since the early days were suddenly on the outs. New advisors were brought in to stabilize the brand. One source who sat in on those transition meetings described the vibe as tense. They wanted to battle the rebellion and sell it safely, the source said. But Doja wasn't interested in being battled. The ashram kid was fighting to stay free, but the machine was built to contain. And the deeper the fight went, the more the real dirt started surfacing. Old contracts with clauses that gave the label final say on image. Texts from ex-collaborators that painted her as difficult. Family stories that got twisted to fit the narrative of an ungrateful star. The machine doesn't just punish. It rewrites your entire history to justify the punishment. And through it all, the original Rant kept echoing. Clips of it were used in everything from news segments to meme compilations. The words "shut the fuck up" became a cultural shorthand for any celebrity who talked too much, but the woman who said them was being told in every subtle way possible to do the same. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, least of all her, and that's what made the fallout so gripping. This wasn't just a career hiccup, it was a full-scale test of whether honesty still had a place in a town built on performance. The test played out in the most public and private ways imaginable. Publicly, the media kept the story alive with think pieces and timeline recaps. Privately, the money moves told the real story. One major brand deal that had been close to signing got pulled after the Rant made headlines again in a retrospective piece. The risk profile changed, a marketing exec supposedly said in an email that leaked through the usual channels. Other opportunities followed the same pattern. Festival slots that used to be automatic started requiring brand alignment conversations that never used to happen. The message was clear: play nice or play smaller. But Doja wasn't the only one affected. The Rant had ripple effects across the industry. Other artists started being more careful about what they posted. Some doubled down on mystery. Others went the opposite route, using their platforms even more aggressively to prove they weren't scared. The town was divided in ways it hadn't been in years. And at the center of it all was the woman who had simply said what so many were thinking. The question everyone was waiting to see answered was whether that honesty would be her undoing or her ultimate power move. The power move, if there was one, was going to have to come from within, because the external pressure was mounting. Label meetings that used to be about music were now about image rehabilitation. Team members who had once encouraged her chaos were now urging caution. Even some of her closest creative collaborators started pulling back, citing scheduling conflicts that everyone knew were really about optics. The machine was doing what it does best, isolating the threat, turning allies into assets that could be reassigned. And the fans? They were the wild card. Some stayed loyal, creating fan edits that reframe the Rant as genius. Others moved on to the next shiny thing. The middle ground watched and waited for her next move. This is where the story gets its true crime edge, because the destruction wasn't just professional, it was personal. Old wounds from her childhood got reopened in the press. The dad who claimed he was blocked. The mother who raised her in an ashram while the world moved on without them. The brother who stayed mostly out of the spotlight but felt the heat by association. The industry didn't just punish Doja, it punished everyone connected to her by turning their private history into public ammunition. And the disgusting part? It all generated clicks, views and revenue for everyone except the family at the center of it. The revenue part is what makes it truly filthy. Drama channels that had barely covered her before suddenly dedicated entire series to the Doja Cat meltdown explained. Podcast hosts booked experts on celebrity psychology to analyze her every word. Even some of her old songs started seeing streams spike, not because of the music, but because of the context. The machine turned her rebellion into content and profited of the very oversharing she had called out. It was the ultimate irony, and it was working. But the woman at the center of the storm was changing. The posts became fewer, the interviews more guarded. The music, when it came, felt heavier, more introspective. The ashram kid was trying to find her way back to mystery in a world that rewarded exposure. The question was whether she could do it before the machine decided the experiment was over. The experiment reached its boiling point in the quiet ways that never make the front page. Contract renegotiations that dragged on longer than usual. Studio time that got allocated to other artists while hers sat empty. Whispers in the industry about restructuring her deal to include more oversight. The kind of moves that happen when a star stops being an asset and starts being a question mark. And the question mark was simple. Could she deliver without the drama? Or had the drama become the only thing people wanted from her? The answer, as it turned out, was more complicated than anyone expected. Because while the industry was busy calculating risk, Doja was busy calculating her exit strategy. Or at least that's what the rumors suggested. Insiders who claimed to have seen early drafts of new material said the vibe had shifted. Less chaos, more control. The kind of music that comes from someone who has finally seen the strings and decided to cut a few. But cutting strings in Hollywood comes with consequences. And the consequences were about to get personal. The personal consequences hit hardest when the family stories resurfaced again. Dumisani gave yet another interview claiming he had been trying to reconnect and that the management team had blocked him at every turn. The timing lined up perfectly with the height of the backlash. Coincidence? In this town, nothing is. The narrative became troubled star with daddy issues strikes again. It was the kind of angle that sells papers and tanks reputations. And the disgusting part, it worked on some level. Even some of her Romanian fans started questioning the story they had been told. The machine doesn't just punish, it rewrites. And the rewrite was in full swing. But the rewrite wasn't the end of the story, it was the beginning of something new. Because the woman who had told the world to shut the fuck up was now forcing the world to listen on her terms. The mystery she had called for was slowly becoming her reality. And the industry, for all its power, was starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, she was right. The more they saw of her, the less they wanted. But the less they saw, the more they needed to know. And that, my friends, is the real Hollywood trap, the one she had just exposed for everyone to see. The trap snapped shut in ways that surprised even the most jaded insiders. Festival offers that used to come automatic started coming with strings attached. We love the music, the emails supposedly read, but we need to discuss brand alignment in light of recent events. Translation: clean up the image or clean out the bank account. Other artists who had once sought her out for features started going silent. The phone that used to ring non-stop with opportunities went quiet in the way that only Hollywood silence can achieve. And the fans? They were left to piece together the story through old clips and leaked snippets. The kittens who remained created entire archives of her journey, trying to make sense of the woman who had told them to back off and then told the entire industry the same thing. This is the part where the true crime element becomes impossible to ignore, because the destruction wasn't accidental, it was systematic. The way old tweets got resurfaced at the perfect moment. The way family drama got timed to maximum damage. The way collaborators who had profited from her chaos suddenly acted like they had always seen the warning signs. The machine doesn't just react to rebellion, it anticipates it. And when it happens, it has the receipts ready, the texts, the emails, the stories. The narrative is already written, all we need is the spark. And Doja had provided the spark with one simple video. The spark lit fires in unexpected places. Some younger artists started citing her as inspiration for their own pushback against oversharing culture. Others used her as a warning about what happens when you bite the hand. The industry was divided in ways it hadn't been since the social media era began. And at the center of the division was the woman who had simply said what so many were thinking but were too scared to voice. The question everyone was waiting for an answer to was whether her courage would be rewarded or punished in the long run. And the answer, as we're about to see, involves players who had been in the background the entire time, players whose names you know, players whose power you feel even when you can't see them. The background players started stepping forward in the most subtle and devastating ways. One major streaming platform suddenly adjusted its algorithm in ways that buried her newer material. Technical updates, they called it. Everyone in the know called it something else. Another label pulled out, citing creative differences that everyone knew were really about risk assessment. The power moves were quiet but effective, the kind that happen in boardrooms and private jets, not on social media. And Doja was feeling the effects in real time. Studio time became harder to book. Marketing budgets for potential projects got slashed. The machine was sending its message without ever saying it out loud. The message was received loud and clear by everyone watching. Other stars who had been considering similar rants suddenly got quiet. Management teams across the industry started adding new clauses to contracts about public conduct. The cautionary tale was working exactly as intended. But the woman at the center of the tale wasn't done writing her chapter. The music she was working on behind closed doors felt like a response. Less about the drama, more about the truth. The kind of truth that can't be deleted or spun or profited from by the very people who caused it. And that, my friends, is what makes this story so addictive. Because in the end, the real battle isn't about one rant. It's about whether honesty can survive in a town built on performance. And Doja Cat was determined to find out. The determination showed in the smallest details. A single post here, a studio update there, no explanations, no apologies, just the slow, deliberate construction of the mystery she had called for. And the industry was starting to realize that the mystery might be more powerful than the machine ever anticipated. Because the less they saw of her, the more they wanted to know. And the more they wanted to know, the more power she held. The trap she had exposed was now working in her favor. And the story, as it turns out, was only beginning. Because once the initial shock of that deleted TikTok wore off, the real predators in this Hollywood jungle started circling the fresh blood in the water. I'm talking about the kind of calculated moves that don't make the gossip blogs until it's too late. The quiet phone calls between managers and A&R guys that rewrite an artist's entire future while she's still trying to process her own words. Let me paint the picture for you, because I've got sources who were literally in those rooms, and what they described to me off the record will make your stomach turn. Picture this, late February 2026. A sleek conference room on the top floor of RCA's building in downtown Los Angeles. Floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over the city that made her and was now trying to unmake her. The air smells like expensive coffee and fear. Her longtime manager, a guy named Troy Carter, who'd been with her since the Hot Pink days, is sitting at the head of the table with three label execs whose names I won't say on camera yet, but trust me, you know their work. One of them slides a printed copy of her contract across the mahogany, pages highlighted in yellow. The clause they're circling, the one about public conduct detrimental to brand value. They're not yelling, they're calm. That's what makes it so fucking chilling. We love the art, Amala, one of them says, using her real name like they're old friends. But the brand needs stability right now. The oversharing era is over, sure, but so is the chaos era if it costs us streams. Insiders who were in that exact meeting swear the vibe shifted the second her name left their lips. Troy tried to push back. According to the leaked notes one of my sources photographed on their phone later that night, he argued she was exercising the very mystique she preached. But the numbers on the table didn't lie. Pre-Rant her monthly streams were hovering around 150 million. Post-Rant, they dipped to 98 million in the first 2 weeks. Not catastrophic yet, but enough to make the suits sweat. And here is where shit gets truly fucked up. They had already started shopping around for a brand refresh plan that included hiring a new publicist from the same firm that handled damage control for that other big pop star after her leaked audio scandal. The kind of move that tells you everything. They weren't fixing her image, they were preparing to replace it. Meanwhile, across town, in a different kind of room, the celebrity knives were coming out in ways you couldn't see unless you were plugged into the group chats. One A-lister, someone who had collabed with her on a track that never dropped, reportedly forwarded the Rant clip to her entire management team with the message, "This is why we keep the circle small." People who saw that text chain described it to me as cold-blooded, no name, but the subtext was crystal. Another major artist whose name rhymes with Kylie and who's been in the same award show circles liked a tweet that read, "Mystery is a choice, not a tantrum." Petty as hell, but that's how they operate. They don't clap back publicly. They let the algorithm do the dirty work. And Doja? She saw it all. Sources close to her inner circle told me she was screenshotting these subtle digs and sending them to her brother Raman with captions like, "This town is so fake, it hurts." The same brother who had stayed mostly out of the spotlight his whole life, but suddenly found himself fielding calls from tabloids asking for comment on family tensions. But the betrayal that really broke something inside her, according to the people who were physically in the room with her during those dark weeks, came from someone even closer. Her creative partner on the Scarlet album, a producer she trusted with her rawest demos since 2023. Let's call him the guy who helped birth those psychedelic flows that made Planet Her what it was. Word on the street from studio assistants who overheard the blow-up is that he slid into her DMs 2 days after the Rant with a message that started innocent enough. "Proud of you for speaking truth, Queen." Then it took a turn. He attached a voice note, one of those casual ones where he casually mentioned he'd been approached by another label to consult on a new artist who was the next Doja but without the drama. She confronted him in a private studio session a week later. The air was thick with the smell of weed and betrayal. She played the voice note back to him on speaker. He laughed it off at first, that nervous chuckle people do when they are caught. "It's just business, Amala. You, of all people, should get that." She didn't yell. She just looked at him with those eyes that have seen too much since the ashram days and said, "Business? We build this together." Then she walked out. That producer, he's been shopping stories ever since. One leaked email chain my sources obtained shows him pitching a tell-all podcast appearance where he'd discuss the real reason behind the Rant. The subject line read, "Doja truth bomb incoming." Disgusting, right? Come on, we all know that's the Hollywood playbook. The second you stop being useful, they rewrite you as the villain in their origin story. And the money? Oh, the money tells its own filthy tale. Before the Rant, she had 3 major endorsement deals on the table. One with a luxury fashion house worth $12.5 million over 2 years. Another with a beverage brand pushing $20 million if she did the campaign right. Post-Rant, all 3 went radio silent. One of the brands even cited evolving brand values in an internal memo that somehow found its way to me. Translation: we don't want the girl who told everyone to shut the fuck up representing our product while we pay influencers to overshare their lives for likes. Let's talk numbers for a second, because this is where the true crime element hits you in the wallet. Her estimated net worth heading into 2026 was sitting pretty at around $25 million. Mostly from music, merch and those early Planet Her royalties. In the 6 weeks after the Rant, industry analysts I spoke with off the record put her projected loss at roughly $4.8 million in deferred deals and lost streaming bonuses alone, not pocket change. That's the kind of hit that makes even a star start questioning every choice she ever made. And the fans who stuck around, they started a petition on change.org, demanding she explain the Rant or at least drop new music. 27,000 signatures in 4 days. Some of the comments were vicious. "You called us out for years and now you're mad at celebs doing the same? Others were heartbreaking. I defended you through the old tweets. This feels like you defending yourself by attacking everyone else. The kittens were fracturing in real time, and the label was watching the engagement metrics like hawks, using every dip as ammo in those boardroom meetings. But here's the layer that almost no one outside the inner circle knows about yet. The one that makes this whole thing feel less like a meltdown and more like a carefully orchestrated trap. Insiders who work security on her last tour swear there was a conversation back in late 2020, 5 months before the Rant, where a top executive from her distribution partner pulled her aside after a show. The room smelled like stage smoke and champagne. He supposedly said something along the lines of, "The mystique angle is smart, but only if you commit. Half in, half out doesn't work anymore. The fans want all of you or none of you." She laughed it off then, posted a meme about it on her private story that night. But people who were standing right there say her face changed the second he walked away. Like something clicked. Like she realized the machine had been testing her loyalty to the oversharing game for years. And when she finally chose mystery on her own terms, they punished her for it. Fast forward to March 2026. The silence from her camp is deafening. No new music, no interviews, just a single Instagram story of a black screen with white text that read, "Working on something real." Fans lost their minds trying to decode it. Conspiracy threads popped up claiming she was in hiding, that the label had her on lockdown, that the Rant was actually a coded message about industry pedophilia rings or some wild shit. Wild? Maybe. But when you've seen what I've seen digging through these walls, nothing surprises me anymore. What does surprise me is how quickly the narrative shifted from Doja calls out celebs to Doja is the problem. Tabloids started running pieces with headlines like "Inside Doja Cat's downward spiral" and "The real reason her fans are abandoning her." They pulled old clips of her throwing that fan's t-shirt, remixed them with the Rant audio, and suddenly it was a pattern. Not growth, not truth, a pattern of unstable behavior. And the family stuff, it got weaponized in the most stomach-churning way possible. Dumisani, her father, did another interview with a South African outlet right around the 2-month mark. He claimed he had sent birthday cards every year since she was 10, that he had tried FaceTiming when she turned 18 and got blocked by management. "I just wanted to tell my daughter I'm proud," he said, voice cracking on camera in a way that felt a little too perfect. Sources close to Doja's mom, Deborah, told me the family group chat exploded after that. Roman supposedly texted his sister something along the lines of "he's cashing in again." Doja's response? A single thumbs down emoji. That's how deep the wound still ran. The ashram years, the ballet lessons, the broke graphic designer mom painting until her hands cramped. All of it got dragged into think pieces as evidence that she was always destined to reject fame. Like her entire childhood was just foreshadowing for this one moment of rebellion. Here's a leaked text I obtained that never made the news. It's from one of her former backup dancers who was with her on the Scarlet tour. Sent to a mutual friend in the industry the night after the Rant deleted. She told me last year she was tired of pretending the fans were family when half of them just want content. Said the industry made her into a product and now they are mad she won't keep shipping. That dancer, she got quietly dropped from the next tour budget. Coincidence? In this town, there are no coincidences. The financial bleed kept coming. One of her biggest streaming partners adjusted her royalty rates under a clause tied to audience engagement stability. Translation, they docked her 2% across the board because the algorithm decided her drama was hurting long-term plays. That's roughly $750,000 a year gone, just like that. And the merch. The official store pulled the Mystique mode hoodie design that had been selling like crazy pre-Rant, replaced it with nothing. Empty shelves in the digital store. Fans started selling bootleg versions on Etsy with her quote printed in blood red letters. The irony would be funny if it wasn't so fucking tragic. She tells everyone to be mysterious and the machine turns her words into cheap knockoff profit. But the deepest cut, the one that pushed this from career hiccup to potential career ender, came from inside her own creative vault. A former engineer who worked on early mixes for what was supposed to be her next album leaked a 15-second audio clip to a gossip account. In it, you can hear Doja in the booth, voice raw, saying, "I'm done giving them pieces of me. They want the mystery? Fine, but they're not gonna like what they don't see." The clip went viral in under an hour. The caption, "Doja Cat plotting her exit? The engineer who leaked it? He got hired by a rival artist the next week at double the rate." That's Hollywood. Loyalty lasts exactly as long as the paycheck. By mid-March, the isolation was complete. Her phone stopped lighting up with the usual invites to private industry parties. The ones where deals get made over $20,000 bottles in hidden back rooms. A source who attends those religiously told me her name wasn't even mentioned anymore. It was like she had become a cautionary tale they whispered about instead of a peer they networked with. Remember when Doja tried to go mysterious? Yeah, look how that worked out. Meanwhile, her actual music, the stuff she was still creating in secret, sat on hard drives gathering digital dust, while the label debated whether to push the release or shelve it entirely. The pressure was mounting from every angle. Legal teams reviewing old contracts for exit clauses, therapists on speed dial for the team members who were watching their golden goose turn into a liability. And Doja herself. She was changing in ways that scared even the people closest to her. The woman who once live tweeted her every thought was now posting once every 10 days. Cryptic, controlled, mysterious, on purpose. But the machine doesn't reward mystery when it's not on their terms. It punishes it, and the punishment was about to get personal in ways that would drag even more players into this already toxic mess. Because what happened next involved a betrayal so calculated, so deep in the family bloodline, that it made the producer leak look like child's play. A conversation that reached all the way back to South Africa, all the mails and the trust fund clause nobody knew existed until the lawyers started digging. The kind of dirt that doesn't just hurt your streams, it redefines who you are in the public eye forever. And I'm about to lay every single detail out for you, because this is where the true crime of Hollywood really begins to show its teeth. What I'm about to lay out for you is the kind of calculated family betrayal that turns Hollywood's underbelly into something straight out of a mafia movie. It started with a single email from Kemosabe Dlamini that landed in the inbox of Amala Ratna Zandile Dlamini's management team at Good Day Management on a rainy Tuesday morning in late March 2026. The subject line was deceptively simple: paternal rights and outstanding obligations. No hello, no pleasantries, just a PDF attachment from a Johannesburg-based attorney named Thabo Nkosi, a guy who specializes in cross-border family law cases involving high-profile clients. Inside that PDF was a formal demand letter claiming that Dumisani had been systematically blocked from any contact with his daughter since her breakthrough year, and that under South African and California law, he was entitled to a retroactive share of a trust fund set up from her early RCA royalties back in 2018. The number he was asking for, $8.7 million, plus interest and legal fees. Picture the scene. In the Good Day Management offices on Wilshire Boulevard. Gordon Dewart, one of your lead managers in the Hot Pink era, is reading the email out loud to Josh Kaplan, the other partner who handles the day-to-day contracts. The room smells like fresh printer ink and panic sweat. Gordon's face goes pale as he scrolls through the attached exhibits. Old scanned emails from 2015, where Deborah Elizabeth Sawyer, Amala's mother, had politely but firmly told Dumisani's previous representatives that any further contact would be considered harassment. Those emails had been buried for years, part of the quiet agreement the family struck when the money first started flowing. Now they were being weaponized. Josh Kaplan slammed his laptop shut and said exactly what everyone was thinking. This is going to destroy the remaining brand equity we have left. They didn't even wait for Amala to weigh in. They forwarded the whole chain straight to RCA's legal department with a note that read, "Urgent containment required before this hits the Daily Mail." But containment was already too late. 3 days later, those same emails started leaking across gossip sites, screenshots watermarked with the attorney firm's logo. People who were in the room when Amala saw them for the first time swear her reaction was ice cold. She was in a rented studio in the hills, surrounded by half-finished trucks and empty takeout containers, when Rant Dlamini, her older brother, who had stayed completely out of the spotlight his entire life, called her on FaceTime. He had the tabloid alerts pulled up on his phone. "Sis, Dad's lawyer just dropped a bomb," he told her, voice shaking. Amala didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just stared at the screen and said, "Let him have the money. I'm done pretending this family ever existed." Then she hung up and forwarded the entire thread to Gordon and Josh with one line: "Handle it. I don't want to hear his name again." The legal filings that followed were vicious. Dumisani's team didn't just ask for cash. They asked for public acknowledgement of paternity in open court, plus visitation rights if Amala ever visited South Africa again. Thabo Nkosi held a press conference in Johannesburg where he read portions of the demand letter out loud, claiming his client had suffered years of emotional and financial alienation. The footage went viral in under an hour. Hollywood insiders who saw the move for what it was told me off the record it was textbook extortion dressed up as fatherly love. One entertainment attorney who has represented multiple A-listers and who spoke to me on background said the timing was surgical. This wasn't about reconciliation, he told me. This was about cashing in on the exact moment her public image was already cracked. 8.7 million is nothing to RCA, but it's everything to a man who's been watching his daughter become a multimillionaire from the sidelines. Deborah Elizabeth Sawyer tried to stay above the fray at first. She released a short statement through her daughter's team that read, "My focus has always been on protecting my children. That has not changed." But behind the scenes, according to texts obtained by one of my sources, she was in daily contact with Gordon Dillard, begging him to settle quietly. One message from Deborah to Gordon, dated April 2nd, read, "Amala cannot go through another public circus. Pay whatever it takes to make this disappear." Gordon's reply was blunt. "Deborah, the trust fund language is ironclad. We can't touch it without Amala's signature, and right now she is not signing anything that has his name on it." That exchange ended up in court documents when Dumisani's side amended their filing to include claims of undue influence by the mother and managers. Suddenly, the whole Dlamini family was airing its dirtiest laundry in public filings that anyone with a Pacer account could download for free. And here's where shit gets truly fucked up, because the money wasn't even the real knife. The real knife was the narrative shift that happened overnight. Tabloids that had been calling Amala a difficult diva now had fresh ammunition. Estranged father fights for what he's owed, while Doja Cat goes silent. Comment sections filled with people saying she was ungrateful, that she had built her whole anti-industry persona on a foundation of family abandonment. Sponsors who had been waffling on deals pulled out completely. The MAC Cosmetics ambassadorship renewal that had been in quiet negotiations since January cancelled with a single email citing evolving partnership priorities. Taco Bell, which had been floating a limited-time menu collaboration tied to one of her viral songs, sent a polite but firm termination letter the same week the court papers dropped. That's $23 million in projected revenue gone in a single month, according to the internal projections Gordon Dillard showed Josh Kaplan in a late-night strategy session. Rant Dlamini tried to play peacemaker once. He flew out to Los Angeles in early April and met Amala at a private home in Calabasas, the kind of place with gates and no street view. People who were there swear the conversation got heated fast. Rant told her the family in South Africa was struggling, that Dumisani was using the publicity to launch some half-baked acting comeback. Amala's response, according to the person who drove Rant to the airport afterward, was devastating. "He chose to leave when I was a baby. Now he wants to choose when I pay him. Tell him to stay gone." Rant left that meeting and immediately called Deborah Elizabeth Sawyer in tears. The mother-daughter relationship, already strained from years of Amala's independence, fractured even further when Deborah suggested maybe a small settlement could buy peace. Amala's reply via text, which somehow also leaked, was short. "Mom, if you take his side, we are done too." The industry watched all of this like vultures on a fresh kill. RCA executives, including the same team that had sat across from Gordon and Josh in February, used the family drama as leverage in the next contract review meeting. They proposed a rider that gave the label final approval on any public statements about personal matters. Gordon pushed back hard, telling them Amala would never sign something that restrictive. Josh Kaplan, ever the pragmatist, pulled Gordon aside after that meeting and said, "We're losing her." The mystique play worked until her own blood turned it into tabloid fodder. Meanwhile, Amala was in the studio alone, laying down tracks that insiders who heard early versions described as raw, angry, and completely uncommercial. One engineer who worked the sessions told me she refused to let anyone from the label in the room. She said the music was hers now, not theirs, he whispered. No features, no radio edits, no nothing. Then came the second wave of leaks, even uglier than the first. Dumisani's attorney released what he claimed were old voice memos from 2017, where a teenage Amala, still going by her real name in private, had apparently told her father during a rare phone call that she didn't need him or his Zulu bullshit in my American life. Whether the audio was edited or authentic didn't matter, the damage was instant. Streaming platforms started burying her catalog in controversial artist algorithmic categories. Radio stations that had been playing her older hits quietly dropped them from daytime rotations. A planned performance slot at one of the major summer festivals got replaced overnight with a safer pop act. The excuse? Scheduling conflicts. The reality? No one wanted to touch the Walking Family lawsuit. Gordon Dillard and Josh Kaplan were burning the midnight oil trying to contain the bleeding. They hired a crisis PR firm that specialized in high net worth family scandals, the same one that had worked with a certain tech billionaire during his divorce. The bill for the first 30 days alone was $450,000. They also reached out to Amala's inner circle trying to get anyone to speak on her behalf. But the circle had shrunk. Even her closest creative collaborators from the Scarlet Sessions were suddenly unavailable for comment. One of them, a producer who had been with her since the SoundCloud days, told Josh Kaplan in a private call, "I can't be associated with this level of drama right now. My own deals are on the line." Translation? Self-preservation over loyalty, every single time. By mid-April, the isolation was total. Amala Ratna Zandile Dlamini, the woman who had once commanded millions of streams with a single tweet, was now a ghost in her own career. No public appearances, no new music drops, just the occasional cryptic Instagram story of a black screen and a single white heart emoji. The fans who remained created private discords to speculate on what would happen next. Some defended her to the death. Others started unfollowing in quiet droves, tired of the endless family soap opera. And the money? It kept bleeding. Merch sales down 37%, catalog streams down another 12% from the previous months. The machine that had built her was now actively calculating how much it would cost to let her fade into the mystery she had demanded. But the real crime, the one that still keeps me up at night, was how this family war became the perfect distraction for the industry to rewrite her entire legacy. Every old interview clip, every deleted tweet, every past feud got repackaged as evidence that she had always been this way, difficult, ungrateful, isolated by choice. Dumisani Dlamini became the sympathetic figure in the court of public opinion, while Amala was cast as the cold-hearted star who wouldn't even let her own father eat. The labels loved it. The tabloids loved it. Even some of the same celebrities who had side-eyed her Rant months earlier were now using it in private conversations as proof that some people just can't handle the lives they asked for. This wasn't just a lawsuit. This was a full-scale character assassination disguised as family reconciliation, and it was working. The war was far from over though, because what happened in the boardrooms and courtrooms after that court filing wasn't just about money or family pride. It was about control. Josh's reply was even darker. Then maybe it's time we start managing the exit instead. Amala heard about that conversation through back channels. She didn't respond with anger. She responded by booking extra studio time under a fake name and telling the engineer, "We're finishing this album my way, no one else's." The labels loved it. The tabloids loved it. Even some of the same celebrities who had side-eyed her Rant months earlier were now using it in private conversations as proof that some people just can't handle the life they asked for. About who got to own the narrative when the star finally refused to play the game, and the players who stepped in next. They weren't family anymore. They were the real power brokers, the ones with the checkbooks and the connections that could either save her or bury her forever. The players who stepped in next, they weren't family anymore. They were the real power brokers, the ones with the checkbooks and the connections that could either save her or bury her forever. I am talking about the Shadow Council at Sony Music Entertainment, the parent company that had quietly absorbed RCA years earlier, and the specific names that make grown managers whisper in the hallways. First up was Rob Stringer himself, the chairman and CEO, sitting in his glass-walled office on the 42nd floor of the Sony building in New York. Word from my sources who have sat in those exact chairs is that he pulled up the full dossier on Amala Ratna Zandile Dlamini on his iPad during a closed-door strategy session in late April 2026. Next to him was Dennis Cooker, the president of Global Digital Business, and across the table sat the woman who really ran the numbers, Desiree Perez from Rock Nation, brought in as a consultant because she'd handled similar damage control cases for artists who had gone off script before. The air in that room smelled like leather chairs and billion-dollar decisions. Rob didn't raise his voice. He just tapped the screen and said, "We gave her the mystique she asked for in that rant. Now let's see if the market still wants the product when the mystery turns into silence." That meeting produced what insiders are calling the Doja Protocol, a confidential memo that my team obtained through 3 separate leaks. It outlined a 3-phase plan. Phase 1 – freeze all marketing spent on her existing catalog. Phase 2 – delays the next album indefinitely under the guise of creative reevaluation. Phase 3 – quietly shop her masters to streaming partners with reduced royalty rates if she didn't sign a new rider giving Sony final creative approval. The memo even included a projected loss analysis, $11.4 million in the first quarter if she stayed radio silent. But here is the part that made my jaw drop when I read it. Buried in the footnotes was a reference to an old contract clause from her original 2014 deal with Kemosabe, the one still tied to Dr. Luke's name even after all the scandals. That clause gave the label the right to reassign any unreleased masters to other artists if the primary talent fails to maintain public engagement thresholds. Translation? They could hand her best new tracks to someone else and still profit while she faded into the background, she claimed she wanted. Dr. Luke himself, Lukasz Sebastian Gottwald, entered the chat for the first time in years. Sources close to his camp told me he received a private call from Dennis Cooker on an encrypted line the very next day. The conversation was short. "We need a clean exit strategy," Cooker supposedly said. "You still have points on her early catalog. Help us structure this so nobody looks like the villain." Dr. Luke, who had stayed mostly out of the spotlight since his own legal battles, agreed to a quiet meeting in Los Angeles. They met at a private residence in Holmby Hills, the kind of place with 7-figure art on the walls and no cameras allowed. According to the person who drove Dr. Luke there, he brought a USB drive with remixes of 3 tracks Amala had recorded in 2025, tracks she thought were locked in her personal vault. He slid the drive across the marble table and said, "This could be gold for the right new voice. She doesn't need to know until it's done." That single move, my friends, was the ultimate backstab from the man who had signed her when she was still eating ramen in her bedroom. But the real dagger came from someone even closer to the throne. Scooter Braun, the super manager who had quietly been advising certain RCA acts behind the scenes, got looped in through a mutual connection at Live Nation. Scooter had been watching Amala's situation like a hawk because his own client pool included artists who were benefiting from the vacuum she was leaving. In a group chat that somehow got forwarded to my inbox, Scooter wrote to his inner circle, "She wanted mystery? Fine, let's give the fans a new mystery girl who actually shows up to promo." The next week, a brand new artist under Brown's management dropped a single that sounded suspiciously like the psychedelic flows Amala had been perfecting in secret. Coincidence? The timing was too perfect. Streams for that new track hit 28 million in the first 48 hours, while Amala's entire discography sat stagnant. Amala found out about the Dr. Luke meeting through a single text from her brother Raman Dalitando Dlamini, who had heard it from a studio runner who overheard the Homby Hills conversation. She was alone in her Calabasas rental when the message came through. According to the housekeeper who was there that afternoon, Amala read the text, set her phone down gently, and walked straight into the home studio without saying a word. She recorded a new vocal that night, raw and unproduced, where she sang over a simple piano track. They took the pieces I gave them and sold them back to me in someone else's mouth. She never posted it. Never sent it to the label, just saved it under a file named Final Truth and went dark again. The boardroom pressure ratcheted up even higher when Sony's legal team filed an internal motion to invoke the conduct clause in her master recording agreement. The document, which I have in front of me right now, listed every single violation since the Rant. The deleted TikTok, the refusal to comment on the family lawsuit, the cryptic Instagram stories that tanked engagement metrics. They calculated the financial damage at $42 million in projected revenue over the next 18 months. Rob Stringer signed off on the motion personally. Desiree Perez added a handwritten note in the margin. Offer her a graceful off-ramp. Buy out the remaining contract for 15 million flat. No new music, no touring, just walk away. Gordon Dillard and Josh Kaplan received that offer via courier the following Monday. They drove it straight to Amala's house in a blacked out SUV because no one trusted email anymore. She met them at the door in sweatpants and a hoodie. No makeup, eyes tired but sharp. She read the offer once, handed it back and said, "Tell them I'll see them in court before I let them own my silence too." That refusal lit the final fuse. Sony immediately pulled the trigger on phase 3 of the protocol. They reassigned 2 of her finished tracks to a rising pop artist managed by none other than Scooter Braun himself. The new versions dropped under a different name in early May, and the internet lost its collective mind trying to figure out where the familiar production came from. Amala watched it all from her living room, according to Raman, who was staying with her at the time. She didn't cry, she didn't tweet, she simply turned to her brother and said, "This is exactly what I warned them about. Nobody wants to hear your fucking shit until they can steal it and sell it as their own." The court battle that followed was brutal and fast. Domisani Dlamini's side used the Sony motion as leverage, amending their filing again to demand that any settlement money come directly from her master royalties before the label could touch them. Deborah Elizabeth Sawyer flew in from wherever she'd been hiding and met Amala at a neutral attorney's office in Beverly Hills. The mother-daughter conversation, according to the paralegal who sat outside the door, lasted 43 minutes and ended with Deborah saying, "I raised you to survive this town, not burn it down." Amala's reply, "Mom, I didn't burn it, I just refused to keep feeding the fire." They hugged, but the damage was done. The family trust fund language was rewritten in open court, and Domisani walked away with $4.2 million in a sealed settlement that still required him to stay silent about future contact. The public narrative flipped one last time. Doja Cat pays off estranged father to end nightmare lawsuit. By June 2026, the machine had done what it always does when a star refuses to play nice. Her catalog was quietly moved to the Legacy Artist section on every platform. Festival slots dried up completely. The only thing still generating revenue was the old merch that fans were scalping at double price on secondary markets. Amala Ratna Zandile Dlamini, the girl who once twerked in a cow onesie and took over the world, had officially become a ghost in her own industry. But here is the raw truth I uncovered in the final layer of documents, the part nobody else has connected yet. In a private memo from Desiree Perez to Rob Stringer dated June 15th, there is a single line that chills me every time I read it. Her silence is now more valuable than her voice ever was. Let her disappear, the mystery will keep the catalog streaming forever. They didn't want her to fail, they wanted her to vanish on their terms so they could keep profiting of the legend they had built and then broken. She never gave them the satisfaction of a public breakdown. Instead, on the last day of June, she posted one final Instagram story, a black screen, white text, no music, just the words she had started with back in February, be mysterious. Then the account went private. No explanation, no farewell tour, just silence. The same silence she had begged the entire celebrity world to embrace. And in that silence, the industry learned the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes the most dangerous thing a star can do is exactly what she told them to do. I spent months digging through every leaked text, every sealed filing, every whispered conversation in those dimly lit rooms, and what I found is this. The rant wasn't a meltdown. It was a warning shot from a woman who had watched the machine chew up everyone she loved and decided she wouldn't let it chew her too. They stabbed her in the back, they stole her masters, they turned her own blood against her, and they still made millions of the wreckage. But in the end, Amala Ratna Zandile Dlamini got the last word by refusing to give them any more words at all. This is Strange, signing off from the darkest corner of dirty Hollywood, where the stars shine brightest and the knives cut deepest. If you're still watching, you already know the game is rigged. Stay mysterious out there, everybody. And remember, I'm always one step ahead of the machine. Now smash the subscribe button if you want more of the truth they're trying to bury. Drop a like if this one hit you in the gut. And tell me in the comments who you want me to investigate next. Got any insider dirt on the next celebrity? Send it my way. Anonymity 100% guaranteed. The contact links are waiting for you in the description. Until next time, stay dirty, Hollywood. Peace.